In this CineGuru MAX tutorial, we're going to take a look at how you can use generic triggers to trigger things during your cinematics. But first we're going to take a look at how you might spawn something in CineGuru MAX. So I've got this barrel, and as you can see I've named it barrel, something unique. And if I go down to its developer settings, I've unchecked the box that says spawn at start. So when our level begins, this object won't exist within the world. It needs to be activated. Activating it will call it into existence. Now one way you might do that is by using a trigger zone. So this is something obviously that comes in CineGuru MAX, and you would simply hook this up with a visual logic connection, and so now when the player enters this zone, this barrel will be called into existence. It will spawn in. And there's obviously a little sound effect there as well. But what happens if you want to do that during a cinematic? And also what happens if you don't want it to spawn straight away? You might want it to spawn after a 2-second delay or something. So what we're going to do is instead use a generic trigger. So to do that, we need to create a little cinematic. So we're going to drop in a camera, and we're going to drop in an endpoint, and we're just going to create a little simple A to B camera move that kind of moves around where the barrel will be, and we're going to spawn the barrel in the middle of the shot. So I'm just going to move these up a little bit so they're at the right height, and I'm going to drop in a cine trigger zone and hook up our camera to our endpoint and our zone to our camera. So at the moment, if you go into this zone, it's just a pretty standard move. The barrel, as we said, it doesn't spawn at the start, and nothing's there to activate it yet, so it just, well, it doesn't appear. We just got our camera move. But what we want to do is spawn it in the middle of this shot. So what we're going to do is go back into CineGuru MAX, into our objects library, and we're going to go down to the bottom and drag out this, the trigger. And this is a really powerful little object. So we need to connect it to a camera. So we're going to connect it to our camera marker, and then we can connect it to anything else in the world that it needs to trigger. And it can trigger multiple things as well. So if we wanted to have 2 barrels, we can do that. But for now, we're just going to connect it to the 1 barrel here. The trigger itself is very straightforward. In its behavior tab, it's got one editable parameter, TI, which is a delay. So as soon as this camera is activated, it will activate whatever this is connected to after the delay. So if we were to put in, let's say, 2, we've added a 2-second delay. So 2 seconds into this shot, 2 seconds after this camera mark has been activated, the barrel will spawn into existence. So now, when we enter that zone, 2 seconds in, our barrel pops into existence, which can be very useful. And we've also included another script with CineGuru, which is the activate to destroy script. And the reason we've done that is for one of our examples in the example map. This time we want to have the object spawn at the start, but when it's activated, it will destroy, which in this case I think means it will explode because it's an explodable barrel. So this can be really useful for triggering things during your cinematics. So in the previous tutorial, I showed you an example where we had a button, and if you press the button, it would activate a camera, and that in turn would activate a door. Just to run through that example again, but this time with a zone. If I drop in a cine trigger zone, you can see how that works. So when the player enters this zone, and I'm just going to mark where it is with a little bit of sand, just so I can find it. When the player enters this zone, it will activate our camera, and then our camera will not only push forward to its endpoint, but it will also activate this generic trigger. And what we've done is we've added in a little delay down here of 2 seconds. Let's just make that 1 second, for instance. So 1 second into this camera move, as it kind of pushes forward on the door is going to start to open. So if we just go into test game, and look, there's an enemy waiting for us behind that door, so it could be a cool kind of boss reveal. So the generic trigger can be extremely useful. You can use it for so many different things, and you can use it for multiple things as well. So for that barrel, for instance, we could have, let's have the barrel up here, and we're going to do the activate to destroy behavior again. There you go. Whoops. Activate to destroy, and then we're going to connect our generic trigger to our barrel. So now the barrel's going to kind of explode after 1 second, and it's kind of going to look like the exploding of the barrel is actually going to trigger the opening of the door. And actually, one thing I will do is just reduce the damage, because I don't want to kill the zombie behind the door. But now, going into test game, so this trigger is now going to trigger not just the door, but the explosion of this barrel. So pretty cool. So it could come in quite handy for a number of different situations, and our zombie's even on his way to try and find us. So thanks for watching this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to take a look at some of the cool things we can do with sound using CineGuru MAX.